Hospital workers, what's the craziest reason someone was brought in for? When asking what brought him in today, he said he was arguing with his sister about the car and how much this costs and carrying on. Had to stop and ask him again, why is he here? His reasoning was he was tired of arguing with his sister and would rather be admitted to the hospital. Over the course of an evening, 9 teenagers were brought in by their parents for hallucinations. None of them were able to tell us what was going on, and they trickled in over about 4 hours. The drug screens were negative, but they were all pretty badly out of it. Finally, one of the siblings was able to tell us they had all been at the same party. One of the teens had talked the others into trying mushrooms, except they were mildly poisonous ones instead of the ones you take for shrooms. They were all tripping like crazy for the night, and they had to stay in the until they were sobering up. It was amusing for the staff, but the parents were quite irate. I'm a cop and was posted at the on night shift once, and a woman came in because she got bit by a snake in her yard. She was panicking because of it. Her hand was really swollen. One of the nurses asked if she saw what kind of snake it was, and she said no. A couple of minutes later, these 2 boys, maybe 12 to 13, came running in holding a decapitated snake in pieces inside of a Ziploc bag. They had rode their bikes from their house to the hospital to show the doctors the snake that bit this lady. Like these kids heard about what happened and went on her yard to kill the snake just to do this. It was funny and oddly heartwarming. I got admitted to the after a heavy leather-bound photo album fell off the top of a freestanding wardrobe during intimate time and hit me on the head. I ended up with 12 stitches and a multi-layer closure, and luckily missed out on a skull fracture. The album in question, the woman's wedding day with her dead husband. We joked later that it was his ghost disapproving of our random horny moments. Oh man, I don't work in the but my dad's old girlfriend did, and he loves to tell this story. One night a guy came in with chronic hiccups. Poor guy had them for about a week. Tried everything. Nothing worked, and he was getting desperate. Nurses tried everything they could think of, and not even their tricks worked. They had to go back to the books and look for alternative cures. Sure enough, there was one. So they go to tell the guy. Apparently, as soon as he heard the word digital rectal stimulation, his hiccups went away. I didn't work in an but was a patient, and someone a few stalls down from me was flipping out because the pot brownie he ate was too strong. It was kinda funny. He kept saying, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And the nurse was like, but you're breathing just fine. And someone else he was with said, I told you not to eat the whole thing. I have seen a guy that came cause his wife put his wedding ring on his P3Nis. We had to cut it with pliers plus cutter as the tools could not cut through. So always wonder what is worst. Your wife found a reason to put her ring on your switch. You have a wedding ring on it and it is totally swollen. A wedding ring fits your switch. This falls more in line with absurd than funny. Had a patient who came into the in a t-shirt and a small towel wrapped around his waist. I noticed in Tridge the patient refused to sit down the entire time. Patient gets rushed immediately to the back. Turns out the patient and his, so we are having a little too much fun, and lodged a dildo in his rectum. The dildo in question was one that has a suction cup on the end of it that they were using as a handle. The dildo also had the shaft broken off, only leaving the testicles. He had to be transported to a higher level of care for surgery of a perforated rectum. The kicker, he did it again 3 months later. It's mostly psychs and illegal substance users that give you your run for your money. Some psych part somehow smuggled a dog in through Tridge, past the nurses, doctors and security into their room. It didn't come to our attention until another psych part was playing catch with him. A 600-pound man on PCP violently trying to kill the staff. It was like trying to restrain a pudgy gorilla. A man with one of those Costco-sized shampoo bottles stuck up his butt, then proceeded to get it out himself, and then walked out. This guy wasn't on drugs or a psych, just had a loose and lubed sphincter. IDK, I've been doing this for a while, it all kinda fades into chaos. I was once in the because I climbed a tree that was apparently wrapped in poison ivy. I got completely covered, head to toe. Even my boys, I had this insane white reaction on my skin that made me look like a zombie for a while. This was the most uncomfortable time of my life. It really sucked. When I was a nursing student, one of my classmates had the following story happen. I was in the ICU at the same hospital. Patient came in and had a vertical gunshot wound through the abdomen. The wound did not damage any organs or major blood vessels, and did not seem to damage anything beyond fatty tissue and skin. The patient tried to maintain that someone shot them until they were informed that if someone else shot him, it would complicate matters, and a full police investigation would be mounted. Then the real story came out. Guy was trying to stuff a gun in his waistband or something, and shot himself. Mom worked in the so I was meeting her for lunch. Dude was rolled in covered in fishing lures. Apparently his buddy had put the tackle box on the dash, and when they had to slam on brakes it flew open. He has them all over his face, down his arms, and stuck to his chest and stomach. You could see him trying not to move, because any stretch of skin would pull at the barb. It was nuts. My buddy dislocated his shoulder years ago. As a result it tends to pop out from time to time rather easily. We were on a big group trip and came back to the hotel after a night out at the bar. Long story short, he thought he was going to come back with a lady for intimate time, but did not. Out of frustration he punched the air. His shoulder popped out and had to go to the ER. I don't work in a but I'm sure I'm more than a few stories. Most recently I was working on my truck with a buddy and we were unbolting body panels. I was holding a wrench on the back of bolt while he zipped the nuts off with a high torque electric impact. One of the bolts was in a difficult spot and the wrench slipped out of my hand, spun around, and pinned my thumb to the frame with the open end of the wrench at full speed. After running it under cold water and wrapping it with whatever we could find, I laid on his floor for a couple of hours until I got called into work. On my way to work they called me back and said never mind. It was at this point I noticed two things. My thumb was still bleeding consistently and I was coincidentally near the hospital. May as well go in. I'm off for the day now. So I walk up to the reception desk. Calm as daisies. Receptionist looks up and says, "Hi, how can I help? You're bleeding." And I was like, yeah. Oh, damn thing won't stop. After soaking my hand in that sterilized water stuff to loosen off my bandaging, they removed my paper towel, electrical tape, gauze, and nasal strips, and gave me like 5 or 6 stitches and some proper bandages along with cleaning instructions. It still continued to bleed a little bit from under my nail for the next couple days. Nearly 10 months later, my thumbnail is almost grown back completely. As a kid, my mom's hospital stories seemed hilarious. She worked there, but as an adult I don't think I'd have the patience to tolerate so many people's crap. That being said, here goes the story. They get a call that a guy has a 7 nosebleed, is already feeling dizzy, losing a lot of blood, and can't stop it. Needless to say they floor it, thinking the guy might bleed out. Get there in very short time. They ring the doorbell. A guy answers. They ask him to take them to the victim. He says they are talking to him. Not one drop of blood on the guy's face or clothes or anywhere. Cheeks all rosy. Doesn't look like he's lost a lot of blood. So they ask what the deal is. He says it's hard to explain, but he was worried they wouldn't send him an ambulance if he was honest about his symptoms, and he's in a lot of pain. My mom tells him to sit down and tell them about the symptoms while they take his blood pressure. Guy says he'll do all of that, except for the sitting down part. Now, I bet you all know where this is going. Turns out he'd been trying to convince his girlfriend to do bud stuff. She wasn't into it, was afraid it would hurt. So the guy says, "If I show you on myself, will you do it?" She reluctantly said yes. So the guy lubes up a thin aluminum flashlight, 2 centimeters thick, 15 centimeters long, bends over and jams it up his own butt. He's got it good in up there, holding on to the end with 2 fingers. However, the flashlight, being cheap, wasn't machined properly in the factory and a small burr on the rim pricked his colon from the inside. So he jolts upright from the sharp pain. The lubed up flashlight escapes his finger and gets sclopped up his bum. So they put him on a stretcher and the driver says into the radio ambulance 98 returning. 28-year-old male with severe constipation and foreign object in his rectum. UHM. It's a flashlight, in case it matters. So, UHM. Yup, you heard that right. We are bringing you a firefly. Stand by.